Alright, hello everyone and welcome back. So last time I didn't have a save here, so we're gonna see if it works, which I think it's going to. But we're going to continue on with the current state of the multicellular stage. Go a little bit more into some of the ways you can differentiate cells and other stuff you can do. Alright. Of course, we're doing a boring plant cell. See over there, that is kind of what we made, because last time, if you remember, I threw together a another cell just to show off like cell differentiation that had some toxins in it. So there was that. Of course. I don't think I mentioned last time, but obviously, well, I might have, but I don't know if I don't recall doing it. But the current rate of progress is to have 20 cells. I assume that's going to stay the same even when we get the stage feature complete. I will say I do wonder how performance will handle on certain computers, because there will be a lot of entities, especially because, there will be the player species, and in later parts of the stage you have the other AI species that should hopefully also be multicellular. So it'll be interesting to see how that all plays out. But yeah, of course, it ends up being honestly a slog from my tests. You can see one of the toxins I've been showed, so we got a toxin bar filled up now. But it legitimately feels like a slog whenever I've done it in the past, especially when you have alternate, because it takes so long for each one to show up, because like this bar still obviously lets you evolve your species, but you need to you have to fill up your phosphate and ammonia to then to have a new cell appear. It's like there. Now go up more. So even to make an edit, you have to grow your species normally. So it has all the cells that you currently have set up for it, and then you can edit it. But to move on the stage, you need to get 20 of that, and it can get so slow sometimes. Like, obviously this is just sitting around, so we're just passively obtaining the ammonium phosphate, which is like the slowest way possible. But it was edited in for like sessile species and whatnot to actually have a viable way of just, sitting around, but it does take forever. See, the phosphate's already done. Just to make sure I have it set already. Have it. I always do flee when I have the signal piece, because that way I don't get like jumbled up in other cells and get stuck. I forgot what we had. It's been about a week. Yeah, so we're just kind of just showing that stuff off. Also, right now, does say just cell 2. We can change it to just be, can't see that, sorry, but you can change the name of the actual cells as well. So now it'll say toxin cell. Sometimes they change the name of, like, the stem cell. This is, although stem obviously is not because of the fact that this is a plant, though it is kind of works well in that regard. It's more of like, think of like a stem cell, like I guess we have as humans, a cell that can turn into any type, and it's kind of just your base cell. Pretty sure you can change the name if you want. But whatever cell is in this spot will be considered the first cell, so it can throw things off if you end up like deleting it or somehow moving these around, which I don't know if you can move the order here around, but be careful like getting rid of this one that's in the front, because it'll cause, like if I did that, this would then become the cell type that would start out anytime I hit confirm and started each round. I would start out as a toxin cell instead. So there's something to note that can get a little iffy. Trying to think what else we could do. let's actually go to this. So you can still change the membranes, and it is funny because so you can have like obviously cells will be always main one. So for this, we would throw things off. So maybe I'll just make another one. Duplicate it. I'll just do that. So example cell 1. So we can really go in and change the membranes still. Do that. Let's just make it. Let's fun do like. Can I do brown? Doesn't really look that good for some reason. Kind of see it's supposed to be a brown. Might just be the background color right now. Okay, yeah, I think it's just the background color that's affecting it. Of course, now that you know we have like a normal membrane, we can also grab some cilia, because this cell could actually engulf and modify that into a pulling cilia and stuff like that. Next, now I can put that there, because I like make them even. I'll do that. Yeah, I'll probably show it off when I do like actual like animal style multicellular thing, but I always like to do on the side some like movement stuff. I like kind of make like more of a mouthpiece up near the front. When I kind of do that as I start to separate out how I want like things usually in my hypothetical 3D creature when they're like that stage would appear. Or also there was the reproduction style. There's only budding so far. I know we plan on having other things show up there. I recall at one point we had other parts available in multicellular, but I think we moved them into the 3D prototype stages, which is like like a muscle fiber and nerve cells. It was kind of weird having them early on like that, but well, I say nerve cells, but it was like meant to be a nerve to affect like your brain. Actually, you don't see them in here anymore, which honestly makes a lot of sense. I've never actually done that before. Let's see if there's anything. Usually, I would say if you can't think of anything else you can really do with an individual cell, probably just throw on just another cell if you can, which I can't. Alright, let's just go ahead and continue this. And see, also, connections still seem a little weird, so I think that will be fixed at some point. Of course, I don't need a move, but one thing I will say, if you're sort of stuck seeing a lot of things from like other things, like, well, oh god, how do I? I guess the best way for me to say this is, like, if you've just had a glaciation event end, but you still see a lot of like the ice particles around, sometimes that happens if you don't move. From what I've noticed, if you stick around, you can also end up finding a lot of your old cells in different configurations because they don't update them, at least unless it has changed at some point. But sometimes it's just good to actually physically move your cell to a different area, because you also kind of refresh the compound clouds, so if they've been depleted, they'll be spawned in new, and things will kind of work out. And also, just another thing to note that I've noticed, unless it's going to be able to be changed at some point, is the order you actually place the different cell parts in affects the actual order they show up in. So like just because like this is at the front doesn't mean it's gonna like show up like first or whatever, because everything originates from the central cell that you started with, and then it just goes out from in order. If there's a way to change that, that could affect things, but it'll probably always have to be needing a like obviously I can't have like a cell that would be here during before this one. Would probably just put it into that spot instead. And you can see we have our front cell. We're also so long that I'm having a hard time seeing what's in front of me before having time to actually react to it. I don't have much of a good turn either, which is kind of see because of the how you well. You can sort of see why I tend to try and make a movement specific cell, especially when I have like my multicellular animals that I create, because it's good to have some cells that are doesn't need to just kind of helping you move around. And it's kind of like obviously the thing with the cell differentiation is you can start to prioritize different things going on. So like obviously these toxin cells, these are good for going, hey, I want to have some cells that create toxins as a defense or to attack other cells. Instead of having every cell produce toxins, you can have a few do that so that it's not a burden on every single cell that you have. Because like, after all, like these will always generate glucose by themselves and generally store it. They don't really use up a whole lot themselves. These are always going to use some glucose to make toxins. So if they're, for say, it may affect the ability for it to generate toxins or also enough glucose to survive on its own. So you're able to kind of use that to a degree, which can help you handle different tasks and just things going on. That's I meant to duplicate it. I am going to make a movement one actually. I said I was not going to do it because there's not an animal, but I kind of want to do that. As I kind of mentioned, I tend to change the colors just so I can see them. It doesn't really reflect how I'm going to have the colors be in the future. Like I'm not going to have like an animal like blue legs, green body, red head or something like that. I just do it here just because I like to have the different colors to be able to see what I'm doing. Put that one there, there. Alright. Not able to really make it even yet, but put one there. For now. You can also see the amount of the cost you need to even just grow. Which can also check each individual cell's like ABT production and usage. This one can produce 119.5 ATP and uses 83.6. This one, so because I haven't messed with the mitochondria, they're all going to have the same general ABT production. This one uses about 80. We're going to do this one, which was 83.6, which interesting that at this point, so you don't have that much of an effect. This one, I think, is going to 85 because you just need it for the toxin. And the base one, just 68.4. Of course, we could always just move the actual movement if we didn't want to. We were planning on just sitting around in order to see what that would do. All right. Although, that's because how the game is currently, once you do become multicellular, you generally will not have anything from it. You can see it's a little. It is nice to see it, but it is funny seeing. I think it shows a pattern here. I don't know if that's the end goal, but I'm going to assume that is, since it's be really hard to show each cell construction over here. There'll be so many panels depending on how many you have. Of course, the game's not going to be able to do anything with these yet. It should be able to in the future, since it would make a lot of sense. I think I'd say probably, I say it all the time, like, I am always really excited to see 5 as a game just change the things it ends up being able to do, just how far it's gotten since even when I joined the team. Because when I joined the team, and we didn't even have the day-night cycle yet. We didn't have the passive ammonia phosphate accumulation. Like, it was definitely a different game when I had started on the development team, and it's changed quite a bit. Obviously not, of course, the point of being like an entirely drastically different game. I feel like if anything, that would be more accurate for how the game started off at the very beginning, and some of the earlier stuff with it, where it could be like, yeah, it changed drastically. But even my time on the team, it's changed a lot. I mean, all the additions of the like terrain chunks, you know, a new thing that happened in like a more recent update, which adds a bit more just life to each patch, makes them a bit more unique and not just a colored background, light level, and compound composition. And it's just different things you can bump into. I do wish the cursor would show you what they're actually, each one is. It does make me a little bummed out. Can't even see that coming. I'm gonna avoid that rock. Barely. Yeah, so I'm always fun watching, even as a developer, just how much the game has changed, even for the time I've been interacting with it. And like I even saw stuff I remember like well before I ever became a member of the dev team, or really had any like main interest or focus in the game itself. But I always saw stuff about it. Because I just remember I saw things from time to time about the game itself. And of course, that was like in much earlier stages of its actual development. Yeah, I think this is a thing where like that cell I had placed like right here, but sometimes they generate a bit off in where they should be. I do think that is something that will get worked on as the development moves into this stage itself. Also, I'm mainly just moving so we're not just sitting in one spot at the moment, because that just gets boring. Yeah, as you can see, yeah. So saying like that's where I put it, but it actually got generated this side there. Alright. Usually end up having to count the amount of cells I have, because it's hard to keep track of all the cells in this. Because there's no like panel yet to show you how many you actually have. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. So that's 14 that we have right now. You can see just how much bigger the cell has gotten. Like look at the size of this now. I mean, also the connections get really wacky. So you can kind of see, like, that's big. And that's, what was like 13, 14, I think I counted. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. Yeah, that's 14. In order to actually progress to the next stage, I still need 6 more cells in this. And if you saw, like, right as I was leaving, the ammonium phosphate cost, it was like 400 something. It's gonna be probably like 6, maybe even 8. Like, it's gonna be a lot higher. I think I already used the cheats previously, so I'm gonna just do that so I can kind of show you how long it takes. At the end, need 6 more. It's 2, 3, 4. 5, 6. Just double count it all. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Counted a little bit better. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. Okay. And the cost is now 570 for both. Well, and of course, just the behemoth. And I was a lot. I think when I did my video, like one of my first ones where I showed all the prototype stages as well, I used the cheats to just put ammonium phosphate directly into the cell. But that's just because I try to speed that stuff up when I want to show that stuff. But let's show at the ×2 speed how long it's going to take for me to get 20 cells while moving, to be clear. If I was sitting around, it would take quite a bit longer. I'm going to end up timing this, though, myself, because I already I'm behind if I was going to do that. Also, you kind of noticed there what happened. I'm pretty sure there is a range to the actual like signal part. I'm gonna back up. I know we don't use the arrow keys to move. Kind of had to get out of that. But it seems to have I think it has, especially with the multicellular cells, it has to get arranged so the central cell, I think, is actually visible on screen for it to take effect. Because obviously if it was taking effect on one of those, it would have already started taking effect. And you just see it's just the behemoth that it all is. And I will say this is one thing I do think Thrive will be doing kind of a lot better than Spore does with its cell stage. Where Spore's cell stage can be 30 minutes long or less, depending on how quick you are with it. She's not gonna get it in 5 minutes, I don't think. I actually don't know what my fastest time for Spore cell stage is, but it's pretty quick. It's usually when you are kind of used to the game, you can kind of just speed on right through it. Of course, Thrive is going to take a lot more time, so there's a lot more investment in it. Plus, technically, there are 2 stages. So you have, of course, the microbe, just one single cell. Then, of course, early multicellular, making a cell colony. And even though they're different stages, they kind of work very similarly, which is why it's also going to be very easy for us to actually make multicellular, because we pretty much already have all the work we need. In a sense, it's like, you could almost say it's just like the whole, sitting on the shoulders of giants concept, sort of, except the giants are ourselves from the past. Because we've already done a bunch of the hard work needed to actually make this stage function, because it was already present in the micro stage. It isn't. Am I actually stuck? Oh, I managed to slip through. I do love that you can see all these small little cells just getting trapped because they can't move away. You're stuck there. It's like little symbiosis. I mean, they're protected. Of course, it is another thing, actually. I think I've mentioned before. I have seen posts on like our Reddits, like the Reddit page at one point, of like symbiosis occurring in the game, which obviously we don't have that coded, but things can sort of play out like this. Like if this works out and keeps this particular species alive, like while it wouldn't be seeking out the cell anytime they had high numbers, because they kept on they were surviving because they were trapped within like these connections. Oh, I think that would actually just split in half there, actually. But if it keeps them alive in high population, then it's kind of beneficial to them to just get unintentionally trapped in these bonds. Because as long as they're kind of just sitting there, they don't really have to use energy, because, well, I'm the one that's moving them around. It kind of works out for them. Of course, as long as I can't eat them, they're fine, which that's the only thing that could even consume them. But I don't think their cell type is one I can even digest without the lysosome. But like stuff like that can occur in the game, which is really fascinating. Because stuff that's not programmed to even occur, but it can still occur if it sort of works out. Like the example I remember happening from like the Reddit post where someone made a species that got started by a bunch of like small guys like this, and it was just like just one cell he had, and he kept on consuming them, and he would create so much glucose it would attract more of them, and it would just be this like kind of cycle almost, where they fed his species, and then his cell would just spill the excess glucose it generated from it. Yep, looks like they're all going over to group up there. Like, it would produce more glucose and it would attract even more of them, which was so strange. Like, that obviously would not be a long-term strategy for like any species. You don't really want to be sacrificing a bunch of your members or to have a bigger thing produce glucose for you in that regard. It is kind of fascinating. I guess in a sense you can say plants almost sort of have got kind of logic with like some seeds and fruits and whatnot, where it's like, hey, we know these animals are going to okay, I need to figure out a different way, and this guy is stuck on me. Please flee. Like plants, obviously, with fruits, seeds, nuts, and whatnot, a lot of them have evolved so that they can be eaten and consumed, giving the animal consuming it some nutrients, but it helps with the actual dispersal of the plant. So it's sort of a win-win for both the animal, it's getting food, and the plant, because it's helping to disperse it in a way that actually assists it. Oh my god, I am trapped. I'm not sure if you can hear. Hold on. I'm gonna turn the mic so you can actually hear the keyboard. I'm pressing all the arrow. I'm pressing the different arrow keys. I can't move. I am actually trapped right now. That is wild. Also, sorry if that got really loud. I moved the mic kind of close to my mouth there. I can turn with the. I'm just doing the X control. But this is like the physics of the colony that's here is also affecting my species' ability to move. So like even if I can get around this, this will keep me trapped if I can't get them through either. Oh, so now I got all 20 in. So I'm actually gonna just save it. Yeah, and then you would hit that button. Or skip saving. Ooh, another new. I think there was some menu backgrounds that only show up in the prototypes. Of course, I'll just show you a little bit about the macroscopic. We talked about that lizard, I think, one time. Actually, in one of the talking one time, like the dev Discord about something, and I forget all the controls for this. I'm not used to it still. Okay. So the whole system here is going to be these meta balls. You can move around, and then it will create kind of what your creature will look like. Don't know what that bar is there for, actually. Let's try. Oh, that's how I modify it. Okay, that's interesting. Okay, I think the game's kind of goofing up. There's one. I can put an example. Cell down. Try to go in there. I just want to use a lot more of the stem cells. Yeah, I'm sure this will refine this at some point, because it is a prototype stage, so it's not meant to be like, you know, it's gonna be glitchy and buggy. Like, I mean, right now, obviously, you saw how like the cells that we had went into so many different locations compared to what they actually were at. I think one of the cool things to note about this is, so I do like, there's sort of a little, I guess you would say ocean box, maybe sky box, this, but people have actually done pixel art with this when we first added it in. Oh my god, sorry about the wild camera movements. I hope that's not an issue for anyone. So once again, you can see cells have become even much cheaper. I do know the general, I think, at this point, these aren't going to be cells, these will be just like tissue sections, and these will be the tissues they're made out of. Also, I mentioned this before, actually I should show it now, because this is where they show up, I think, now. Yeah. The axon and myofibril. This is like muscle cell stuff, although currently doesn't have true use. Actually, does say it does increase speed. Okay. And this is for like brain matter stuff, because you need that to do stuff as well. Actually, just new muscle and a brain. I can show that off as well. Now, also change the color. So this is the muscle one, so let's just make it blood red. This one will be sort of a pinkish to be like brain matter, I guess. I'll put that up top there. And I don't know, obviously, if you make brain like that, how it'll affect certain things. I assume you're going to want to like put that inside most of the time. Whereas here, you can actually kind of see, so this is a change they made as well to actually have it all kind of fused together. Oh, and I think there's a bit more movement now. Oh, it's a little iffy, to be honest. Also, you probably saw hit C for cursor in the prototypes. You can move to land, and go back to the editor. So obviously, take one of these and just slap it on. Here, just do one there and one there. So you can kind of see in the editor there how it changed. But of course, that stuff only really takes effect on land, but you can also see that this value has changed a little bit. And now see this would be the aquatic stage speed, just be moving around. Oh, you can see I'm a lot faster now actually. So it definitely is having effect. Also, I love the giant kind of iron chunk. This makes me think that we're still the size of the cells in our microbe stage and early multicellular, because I think this is actually the model of one of the big iron chunks. So a weird thing that I actually found out is being shown in the dev Discord is, even though it's top down for the first two stages, all the models are 3D, which I think I remember caused some issues at one point with some like collision stuff with the cells, because they had to make sure that like things can go above or below them, and just kind of wonkiness. It's also why you'll see like, you know, the shadows. There's like force generated. Actually, because it is a 3D model, so there's like a plane that everything else is on, and they kind of go up and down. I do think that's kind of a funny little tidbit. Yeah, I do believe this is one of the actual models. I don't know if it's scaled up or if it's technically to scale with the micro stage ones. Yeah. Honestly, if you want to increase that like a wear value, just and more brain matter. And again, I assume it's going to be stuck to just one cell type, so if you put the nerve into a cell, you can't put it into another one, just so you don't have like every cell with a nerve, because if it affects your like aware size, oh yeah, that's another cool creature design. Like, I'm sure you can see the awakening has gone a lot higher. Like, if every cell you had was added with a nerve, you could become like get a really high value here, which would be a little weird. And obviously, it's because they're tied to being like awakened and aware stuff instead of like all like the nerve stuff, because it has to be simplified to some degree. Also, yeah, moving on, this will be more gradual. And yes, we're not gonna allow, like, the player won't be allowed to transition back. I assume we're gonna let the AI species do that. This is mainly because we don't, there's no way to do underwater civilizations. We can't really have people trying to do that. Although, like, I have suggested semi-aquatic lifestyles should be fine for like civilizations and even for the players to have. So that's possible, but don't expect us to allow you to fully return to the water. I feel like, I don't know if I've ever looked at these stream models. I feel like these might have been updated, funnily enough. Or so ignore the fact that we are supposed to be a plant. We're moving around like this. At this point, so obviously the rocks and these look, it's gonna be like tropical tree vibes now. They should just look like normal forest trees to me. Honestly, they don't do nothing really now. The trees have collision boxes though. The rocks don't. Oh, they actually hit like perfectly. Yeah. If I just go a little around it, see a little jank. I can knock the rocks around. You can see once again the rocks are just iron chunks, really. I'm sure when we actually have the stages worked on, there'll be different stuff. Plus, obviously not just a flat plane. There's been work on like an actual planet generator, and probably I think will somewhat be used in. Now, when I say planet generator, I don't mean like how you can mess with the planet settings at the beginning of your game before you start. I mean like actually generating the physical entity itself, basically, and I think that'll be used in the macroscopic stages for both the aquatic part and the terrestrial part. But now I'm gonna just hit this and she can do it. Whoop. Of course, now at that, we can interact with all this. I'm gonna hit F to pick up a rock. Of course, now I will say it is supposed to follow the player, but it used to do that in a previous version, but something probably got a little goofed up. Crafting, yeah. Obviously, I'm sure this will become better. Oh, yeah, I gotta select it. Oh, actually, no, I think that's new. I act like that was normal, but I'm like, I don't remember that before. So now I got an axe. I can harvest a tree. Oh yeah, I forgot these were just like little blocks. Yeah, that is another thing to note. There is, oh, but of course we do have a nice model for that. Drop the axe on the ground. Of course, this will be a lot more to this as well. I think I was just going to show you most of it. I'm going to just do this because it is kind of fun to mess with this as well. That looks a bit better, actually. Yeah, there we go. All right. Couldn't remember how to actually get it on the ground for a moment. I'm going to need more wood. This, 2 wood, so I just need rocks now. Oh. Okay, so it does look like it's trying to follow me. It just had a very weird distance there. That was odd. We don't actually need you. Just drop you, because I just need to grab 3 rocks now. Pick up. So once again, the funny kind of jankiness of it. You can just go flying past and still pick it up. Oh, they're following me now there. Like that's sort of what they're supposed to actually do. But prototype stages being buggy though is expected. Of course, oh yeah, I gotta stand right next to it. And then you just do that. I don't know why Tangy just died there, but okay. But yeah, I mean, obviously all this will be, a lot smoother in the future. These are all just prototype stages. And then here you can see just, also I do like to zoom out for this because there's a lot more room now. Obviously, like the wood, actual trees disappear, but it does look at this as a test also for like different ground types. So we got like, kind of like I would say your normal dirt, soil, kind of looks, it's like sand I think, for like a desert, beaches, and that's it for now. Obviously, so some of this I think is also just testing of things. And I know part of the, also moving it around with my mouse cursor, you will notice that there's still this button here, even in these stages. This is because, well, as it kind of said there, there will be ways to make some changes. Since obviously even when we get to okay, yeah. But, like even when we're in these stages, like even in real life, like we don't just stop adapting and changing. As you kind of saw there, mentioned like lactose tolerance. For those who don't know, humans and most mammals, when they're adults, or after a certain amount of time, they're supposed to become, well, lactose intolerant. They're not supposed to be able to handle lactose. Because it's just for when mammals are infants, there's usually just get another dose ready. Since, of course, usually you don't want to continue trying to consume that stuff since it takes a lot of energy for the animal, like the mother, to actually produce and all that. However, in humans, well, we didn't continue, drinking human milk. Those who had like cows or goats that they had domesticated and lived with, well, it was a good source of nutrients that they had available to it, because milk does have a lot of nutrients. It is meant for the young, and those who could drink it had a better chance of being able to survive. So those individuals who already had, like, well, the ability to tolerate lactose. And so since they could utilize more sources of nutrients and energy and all that, they had a better chance of actually fully surviving and making it through life itself, basically. And those who didn't would potentially starve or have other issues, not if they couldn't actually have enough food available to them. Also, this is, and I have another thing I actually mentioned at one point, I think on the dev forum, when I talked a little bit about like the future stage, especially for society and whatnot, is you can see that one just finished because I finally got enough of the rocks. Is that, like, obviously right now we're just set to certain materials and months, but obviously you're gonna have some way to edit what your buildings look like, hopefully just like kind of supported. But I want to see something that's a bit more dynamic, as in, like, if this was like fully forested, then you wouldn't really be using rocks per se. You might be using like wood and fur, so like how the natives of America tend to do certain things, especially in like the plains. Or if you're in a place with a lot of rocks, you stick to, well, the rocks. You wouldn't, like, if you try to add wood, well, like, obviously, something to do, like, to do something in this stage, well, in this prototype, is just, like, creating what I call, other villages. So I'm gonna put one here, but, like, let's say, like, this area is meant to be a forest, and then when I set up here, it's, like, a desert or something. Or maybe really mountainy, not as many trees. I don't need another one of those. Oh, built one anyways. Also, the way this prototype works, the more individuals you have, the quicker you gather resources at the moment. I just like to go crazy with it. Yeah, but like, obviously these buildings probably would not be using wood if we're in like a desert or a really rocky area where you don't have as many trees available. Whereas, even though I love they're coming down here, well, it's like this area, if this is a forest, you probably wouldn't be using as many rocks because you have a lot of trees. Like if it was a plains, probably some wood, although you wouldn't have a lot, so you wouldn't want to make it fully wooden. You'd probably use wood for like the frames, or maybe even strong animal bones, depending on what kind of wildlife there is in that area. And then also like a lot of furs for some parts of it. Of course, then, you know, so you still just basic model there, but I'll put that down and let it go. It takes a lot. That's usually why I kind of go a little crazy with all the other stuff. Because the more that you have right now, the quicker things go. Now then, I don't think it'll actually play like this when we refine the stage. Just how the prototype works at the moment. And there goes the factory that looks just like the society stage building. And you zoom out and then you get like a city looking thing. And then, see right now, we just structures, whatnot. This has even less because you just, all you gotta do is research rocketry, then build a rocket. It's it, really, at the moment. Of course, nothing wrong with that, but it is the prototype. So it's not as much, you don't get to mess with the city yet at all. Of course, once again, probably will be dynamic. I will say, when I first tested out these prototypes, I had my old laptop, and it struggled. Okay, there we go. I was about to say, did it break? But it struggled a lot. Like this whole cutscene, when I did it the first time, took so long because my poor laptop could barely handle it. It took maybe like well over twice the amount of time it should have taken for this whole cutscene to play. So once again, there'll probably be a lot more work into actually this stuff as well. There'll probably be even like not just, oh, build a rocket, you're in space now. There'll probably be a transition period, which is something I definitely want to make sure there is. And even like a starter kind of early space as well, perhaps. It allows for player to get accustomed to the mechanics we'll have in these future stages. So right now, all we got is just Dyson Storm Ascension Gate. Of course, this is going to be a lot more like Stellaris, probably in the playstyle of it. I'm not even near the planet, but okay. So this is meant to be probably like, you know, just like one of the construction ships. I try to say builder ships. I played Stellaris a little bit to get used to the playstyle for it. Just Lily Ascension Gate. Now my thought with the Ascension Gate is it's going to be a much bigger thing than what it is currently. But we'll see how things play out as well. I can use it. You know, like my whole assumption for the Ascension Gate is would actually allow like entire ships to go through instead of like an individual like this is showing. But once again, we'll see what happens when we get to that stage. We actually get there. And then you just gotta hold it. Yeah. So that's pretty much how it is at the moment. And of course, I'll show you the prototypes again. Yeah, so this is, I guess that's a good place to end this video. So, I hope you all have a good day, and see you next time.